Okay. Hi everyone. Hope you all staying safe. Mrs. Kempster here, Miss Osborne, and Miss Gospodinova with a very special guest, Caroline Lawrence.
Hi, Caroline.
Hi.
She's the author of successful book series Roman Mysteries, as well as many more fascinating novels. She's mainly and mostly well known for historical fiction genre and her extensive knowledge of and passion for classics and ancient history. Now, in this session, what we will be doing, we will be interviewing Caroline about her books and writing techniques, and we might even get a few tips on how to improve and create an enticing story. Over to you, Caroline.
Thank you so much. It's really great to be here. Today, I'm going to be telling you a bit about how I got started writing. I'm going to tell you about my Roman Mysteries series, which some of the covers are scrolling through right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I write. I'm going to read a bit of Greek and ancient Latin, ancient Greek and Latin. And then at the very end, hopefully, I might answer some questions that you all have. So straight away, those of you who are really good detectives will realize that I'm not English. And I wonder if any of you out there can think what nationality I am, where I'm from. If you just said, I bet she's American, give yourself a pat on the back. And I came to England over 40 years ago to study at Cambridge University, Greek and Latin, which is classics, and I've been here ever since. And at first, when I graduated from Cambridge, I became a teacher, and I loved being a teacher. I taught kids about your age, but you know, being a teacher is a really hard job, isn't it, ladies?
Yes.
I thought, what job could I do that would give me time to do all my favorite things, which are reading books, watching TV, and going to the movies. And I thought, I know, I'll become a writer, because if I'm a writer, I can sit around all day drinking hot chocolate and making up stories, and people will pay me to do that. So I thought, I'm going to become a writer. And at first I couldn't think what to write about. And then in 1999, my sister made a suggestion that changed my life. And I figured out what to write about. I'll tell you in a minute. And not only did I write some books, but they made them into a TV series. And you're seeing some images now from the TV series of the Roman Mysteries. And I actually got to go to North Africa to watch them filming the first season for just a few days. And I went to Bulgaria to watch them filming the second season.
That's where I'm from.
Yeah, amazing, yay. So, so I had so much fun. And do you know what? You can actually get the Roman Mysteries TV series either on a DVD, or they're also available on Amazon, Amazon Prime, if you want to watch them. And it just helps you bring the world alive a little bit. So yeah, so that's a little bit about me. And now I'm going to tell you how to write a great story and about some mysteries of ancient Rome. So this is where I'm sitting right now. I live on the River Thames, and I thought maybe I'll just turn my monitor and you can see that I'm not lying. There's the river right out there.
Lovely.
Isn't that amazing? Woo! Yeah.
Brilliant.
And sometimes people say, do I have pets? No, we don't have any pets, but we have lots of birds out there. And my favorite birds are the Egyptian geese, which are actually not geese, they're ducks, and they bark like a dog a little bit. So I love living here. So I have written 17 Roman mysteries. I've written 4 spin-offs for your younger brothers and sisters. I've written some books set in the Wild West, yeehaw. I've written 2 books based on Virgil's Aeneid, which is an ancient Latin poem, an epic about a hero who survived the battle of the siege of Troy. I'll tell you about that in a minute. I've written these Roman quests, these 4 books, which kind of are a spin-off or a sequel to my Roman Mysteries series. Kids, be careful what you read. A book could change your life. When I was 18 years old, on my gap year between secondary school and university, I read this book, The Last of the Wine, set in ancient Greece, and it blew my mind. It's set in ancient Greece, the time of Socrates, a famous philosopher, and Plato, another famous philosopher. Philosopher is a big word for a wise man. And it's got Spartans, and it's got the Olympic Games, and it's got these two young men who like fight in battles with spears and swords, and they run in the games and they wrestle and stuff. And this book was like a time machine that took me back, and I got so obsessed that when I went to university, I signed up for ancient Greek so that I could read ancient Greek, and I loved it. And they said, if you like Greek, you'll like Latin too. We call it classics, and Latin is another dead language that they spoke in ancient Rome. And even before I became obsessed with ancient Greek and Latin, I loved the Greek myths. Yeah. And I'm sure you guys are quite clever and know all about the Greek gods and goddesses. I bet you do. And you know that sometimes one of the Greek gods or goddesses would go on a date with an ordinary human and have a baby. And that baby was the original meaning of the word hero. So they were half god and half human. And here's a famous hero who has one parent who's divine and one parent who's human. And I wonder if you can guess who he is. If you said Hercules, you're wrong.
No.
Hercules usually has a big lion skin and a club. Yeah. If you said Theseus, you're also wrong. That's a good guess, but not right. If you said Jason, you're wrong. That's a good guess. He's a hero. If this is Achilles, and
Achilles, yeah.
He's the famous hero who had a sea nymph as a mother. And some of you may remember the story that when Achilles was a tiny baby, his mother took him by his little heel and dipped him in magic water. And wherever the water touched him, he became invulnerable, which means nothing could hurt him. And even when he grew up to be a big, strong hero, he was invulnerable all except for his heel. And he could be wounded in his heel. You might say, so what? Someone could hack his heel. It would hurt a lot, but it wouldn't kill him. No, but if someone had a bow and arrow and they fired it with a poison tip right into his heel, that could kill him. And that is how Achilles died. And even today, we call someone's weakness their Achilles heel. And I don't know if you're like me, but when I first read that story, I thought, why didn't his mother swish him around in the water and get him invulnerable all over?
No drama.
Yeah, but now that I'm no drama, exactly. Now that I'm a writer, I know why. If your hero is totally invulnerable, he's going to win every battle. So you need that element of doubt. Maybe the bad guy will beat him. So that's my first tip for when you're writing a hero. Give them a weakness, an Achilles heel. Here's a little bit. The author of the story of Achilles, one of the authors is Homer, and he wrote it in ancient Greek, 800 BC. That's nearly 3,000 years ago. And here's my copy of the Iliad in Greek. And I thought I'd just read you a little bit of it. Menanae de thea pelea deo Achilleos ulomenein he muria chaioi algoi theke polastimus psychas aidi proiapsineron. Goes on, and some people could recite the entire Iliad by memory. And although Achilles' heel is physically his heel, his emotional weakness is his hot temper. I wonder if any of you out there also have a hot temper. I do. And the first word of the Iliad is menon, right there, which means wrath or anger. That's his real Achilles heel. So I don't know if you're like me. When I was your age, I loved mystery stories, and I especially loved Nancy Drew mystery stories. I devoured them all. And later on, after I left Cambridge, I became a teacher and thought I would like to become a writer. I thought, what can I write about? And one day in 1999, 21 years ago, my sister said to me, why don't you write a book for kids set in Pompeii? And it was like a light bulb went on over my head. Bing! Good idea. And I immediately thought, I love ancient Rome. I love Nancy Drew. Why don't I do like Nancy Drew in ancient Rome, a kind of mashup? And I thought she can be a girl detective and she can live in ancient Roman times and solve mysteries. And I remember thinking, if I can pull this off, it will be a hit. So here's Flavia Gemina, or you might say Flavia Gemina, but I say Flavia Gemina, which is the American pronunciation. And she's like my girl detective. She's only 12 because girls could get married at about 15, and I didn't want her to worry about getting married yet. In fact, girls could legally get married at 12, but she doesn't get married at 12. And she's my girl detective. She's really, really clever. And at first, when my sister said a book for kids set in Pompeii, I was really excited because, of course, the most amazing thing that ever happened in ancient history, in my opinion, was the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, the volcano. And here's a beautiful fresco of Mount Vesuvius painted by someone who lived there in Italy 2,000 years ago. And you can see the beautiful mountain there. It's green and lush with vineyards on the slopes. And there's the god of wine, Bacchus or Dionysus, giving some wine to his pet leopard. That's his special animal. Now, when Vesuvius erupted, no one dreamt it was coming. And when it erupted, it was not like this. There were no flaming boulders when Vesuvius erupted. There were no rivers of lava. There were no kissing couples in the foreground. When Vesuvius erupted, it was ash going up into the air around midday. And the ash went up and up and up, about 10 kilometers or higher. And for about 12 hours, people could have got out if they wanted to. Some people, the scaredy cats, ran away, and the brave ones stayed behind. Raise your hand if you would have been a scaredy cat and run away. Raise your hand if you would have been a brave one and stayed behind. All you brave ones are now dead because
more like stupid ones.
At about midnight, about 12 hours after it started erupting, the top of that cloud collapsed, and there was something called a pyroclastic surge, like a tsunami of white hot ash. And before it collapsed, it was like, here's from the filming of the TV series, it was like warm gray snow falling down, the ash. And if you had asthma, like this guy, Pliny the Elder, you would have died probably because it would choke you. But in Pompeii here, at Herculaneum, right at the foot of the mountain, it was so hot, the ash, when it came down like a tsunami of white hot ash at midnight, it just killed people instantly and vaporized them and carbonized, it turned the bread to carbon and stuff. But by the time it reached Pompeii, a few kilometers away, it was still super hot, but not hot enough to make people vanish in a puff of steam, but it cooked them whole, a bit like a hot dog in a microwave in about 1 second. And it was amazing because it was just hot enough to kill them instantly, but it didn't burn up their clothes or anything. And then the ash continued to fall like warm gray snow. And after about a day and a half, it finally stopped falling. And over the next 2,000 years, the ash got hard. The people decayed and turned to dust. And when archaeologists were digging down in Pompeii, they found people-shaped holes in the hardened ash. They poured in liquid plaster of Paris, waited for it to dry, and they got the shape of the person who died. And that's how we know people died instantly. One guy was up on his elbow. He didn't even have time to collapse. And here's a cart driver. You can see he's got his cloak with a hood, and he's got his hands in front of his face. And what's really sad is there was one watchdog, and he knew he had to run away, but he couldn't get away because he was chained to his post, and they found his shape. And it's so sad, but it's also happy because he's now one of the most famous dogs in the history of the world. And if he had escaped and run away, he only would have lived a few more years because dogs don't live that long. This way, he is famous forever. And that's actually how ancient Romans got immortality, how they wanted to be remembered. That's why they wrote letters and wrote books and wrote epics, is so their name would be remembered forever. That's their closest they could get to living forever. So this dog actually inspired an idea for a mystery story, because Romans didn't have burglar alarms, no electricity, but they might have a watchdog, a fierce dog to guard their house from burglars. And out in front of their door, where we have a welcome mat, they might have a mosaic like this that says Cave Canem. I wonder if any of you can guess what Cave Canem means. Yes, if you said beware of the dog, you got it right. And I love this one because you can see his little red collar and his chain, and his ears are pricked forward, and you can almost hear him growling. And my favorite bit is the shadow under his forelegs to make him look three-dimensional. So I thought, I'm going to have a mystery where someone is killing the watchdogs of Ostia, because I'm writing kids' books, I can't kill people. That was a big mistake. Nobody likes it when I kill dogs, so I had to promise never to kill dogs again. But I'm afraid some dogs die in my first book. So here's Italy, shaped like a big thigh-high boot with a high heel and a toe kicking the football of Sicily. Napoli is where Vesuvius is. And at first I thought I'd set my stories and have my girl detective live in Naples, in Napoli, Pompeii. And then I thought, no, not Naples, but let me have her live in Rome, here on the knee of the boot. But not Rome, Ostia, the seaport of Rome. Now, Ostia, I don't know if you've been, but it's my favorite ancient site in the whole world. And it's just magical. And it's got these beautiful tall umbrella pine trees. They look a bit like a parasol or an umbrella. That's why they're called umbrella pines. And Flavia lives here. Flavia lives with her father, who's a sea captain. And in the first book, The Thieves of Ostia, she has to solve the mystery of who's killing the watchdogs of Ostia. But she solves a little mini mystery in the first chapter. Someone has stolen her dad's signet ring. It's what Romans used to sign your letters or press into a wax tablet. It makes a little impression. And this has Castor and Pollux, the Gemini, the divine twins. And Flavia's dad has been signing some documents and dripping the wax, pressing the seal in, and he left the ring right there on the table and went to the loo, and when he came back, the ring was gone. Who could have stolen it? Flavia looks for clues, and on one of the pieces of parchment, she sees an inky bird footprint. She goes into her garden, and which Romans, if you were rich, you'd have your garden inside the house. Isn't that cool? With a little fountain and a bench. See that? And columns all around, open to the sky and the sun. And in the branches of one of the trees, she sees a magpie. And like you, she knows, aha, magpies like bright, shiny things. So I'll bet he took the ring. But if the magpie did take the ring, his beak is empty. So he must have taken it to his nest, and now he's come back for more. So she comes up with a clever plan. She takes a chain from around her neck. She puts it in a beam of sunshine on her dad's desk in the tablinum, hides behind a column, and waits to see if the magpie will take the bait. Sure enough, the magpie flies down, grabs the chain, and flies off over the back wall of her house. Flavia runs to the back door, opens it, and hesitates, because one step over the threshold, which is the bar at the bottom of your door, will take her not just out of her own house, but out of the whole town, because their house is built into the town wall. And her dad's told her never to go into the graveyard, because that's what's outside every Roman town, is the necropolis, the city of the dead. And her dad's told her, don't go out there. There are kidnappers out there who might kidnap you. And there are wild dogs running around. And if you believe in evil spirits and ghosts, and the Romans did believe in evil spirits and ghosts, they would be in the graveyard. But she really wants to get her dad's ring, so she steps out into the graveyard, lets the door slam behind her. No going back now. She's following the magpie through the woods. And for a terrible moment, she can't see him anywhere. And then there he is, popping up from an old oak tree, and his beak is empty. She waits for him to fly away, runs to the tree, climbs up it, and sure enough, where the branches meet, there's the nest, there's her chain, and there's her dad's ring. And she says, "Elge," which is Latin for yay. And she thinks, I'm a good detective. I'm really good at this. Now, Romans didn't have pockets, but what they did have were like belt pouches like this, made of wool. This one's dyed with onion skin. And you wear it around your waist. You'd have a tunic, like a big t-shirt. And she puts the ring in her belt pouch. And then she thinks, I wonder if there's any other treasure in the nest. And she digs down, and right at the bottom, she finds a gold and emerald earring worth a lot of money because it's got an emerald and pearls and gold. She takes it to the goldsmith in Ostia the next day, and he gives her 600 sesterces, 6 gold coins, each worth 100 sesterces, about 6,000 pounds in today's money. She says, yay! And she says, I'm going to buy a book. Now, you might say 6,000 pounds is a lot for a book, but she doesn't want any book. She wants Pliny the Elder's Natural History in 27 volumes. And Pliny's the poor guy who died or is going to die in the eruption of Vesuvius because he has asthma. Anyway, she's on her way to the bookseller, and then she sees them leading slaves across the forum. And the last one in the queue is a dark-skinned girl about her own age, and the price tag around her neck has 6 Roman numeral C's for 600, exactly the amount that Flavia's got. So she buys Nubia to save her from a fate worse than death. And it's good she does, because if Flavia's good with her head, Nubia's good with her heart. She's good at sensing if people are good or evil. Now, I told you that story in a bit of detail because it illustrates the 7 steps of a good story. That's my secret formula, my talisman, my holy grail, my golden fleece of storytelling. And I'm just going to race through it super quick. The 7 steps. This will get you tons of kudos, of awards, of A's from your teachers if you write your short stories using my 7 beats. You always start off, I call it the hero's journey. It's a shortened version of a 13 to 18 beat story structure. It's kind of like a roadmap, but you always start with your hero who has a problem and a need. Now, the problem's the thing they know about. The need is the thing they need to learn to live a better life. Flavia's problem at the beginning of the little story I just told you is someone's lost her ring, her dad's ring. Someone's stolen it. Yeah. Step 2, your hero has a desire, and it's usually for something we can see and touch. It will solve their problem. Flavia's desire is for the ring. Step 3 is the opponent. Someone else wants what your hero wants, and they're going to clash with your hero as your hero goes for their desire. That's the beginning. Those first 3 steps are your beginning. You can set them up in 1 paragraph sometimes. The middle of your story is 1 step. Your hero has to come up with a plan to defeat the opponent to get the desire to solve the problem. And the plan often involves a journey. The beginning of the end, obviously Flavia's plan is to leave bait, find the magpie's nest. And the journey will take her out of her house into the woods, into the necropolis. Step 5 is the battle. And that's where your hero and your opponent finally clash to decide who gets the desire, the reward. Whether your hero wins or loses the battle, hopefully they get some knowledge, they learn something. And maybe they get the prize too. Flavia gets the prize, which is her dad's ring back, plus that earring. But she also gets some knowledge. She learns that she's a good detective. And that's what she needed to learn to live a full life. You know, sometimes the hero cannot get the prize, but learns something and end up on a higher level. And that's my final step. It's just another way of saying a happy ending or a sad ending. Take a mental photo of that. Bing! That's my secret formula. And it's in my modestly entitled book, How to Write a Great Story, along with lots of other tips. I also give you tips about how to write a character, the characters. And I went back to Greek myths, but also movies to find 5 archetypal characters that appear in almost every good story. Now, who's favorite too? Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, over 70 years old, and it's still a classic. Star Wars 4, over 40 years old, still a classic.
Yeah, Star Wars.
And Pixar's Up, of course. So I realized every great book or story has a hero, and they don't have to be like Achilles or Hercules or Superman or James Bond. They can be a girl, a kid, a hobbit. They can have special powers like Dorothy, no powers like, special powers like Harry Potter and Luke Skywalker, or no powers like Dorothy and Frodo. And in my books, Flavia is my hero. She doesn't have special powers, just that she's clever. And because I thought I'll have 4 main characters, I thought I'll give each one of them one of the 4 elements that the Romans thought the world was made of. So Flavia is air. Have you noticed there's always the faithful sidekick of the hero, whose gifts complement the heroes? And in my books, that's Nubia, the beautiful slave girl. Her element is fire. She has golden eyes and comes from the desert.
Mm-hmm.
Have you noticed that there's often the funny one who can be the same as the faithful sidekick, but is also funny? And funny one, there we go. Can be two people like Pippin and Mary. In my books, Jonathan is the funny one, and his element is earth. He's steady and grounded. He's also a bit pessimistic, which is the melancholic. The humor goes, the four humors go with the four elements. He's melancholic, thinks the cares of the world are on his shoulders. Finally, you have the wild one. This is one of my favorite archetypal characters. And when the hero first meets the wild one, they think they're the opponent, but they're not. They're actually going to turn out to be a helper. So the hero might have to fight them a bit to get them on their side. And but sometimes, because they're like part animal or have aspects of an animal, they betray the hero, as Gollum reminds us. And in my books, Lupus, a little half-wild beggar boy with no tongue, who can only growl, he is the wild one, and he does betray his three new friends in the first book. But by the second book, The Secrets of Vesuvius, he's learning how to read and write so that he can express himself. And he uses a wax tablet like this, and he writes his first word. Here's a stylus. You can write. He writes his first word on a wax tablet, which is volcano. Now, there's one more character who doesn't go on the journey with the hero, but sends the hero on the journey. I call them the mentor. And they're usually a wise older person, like a librarian, a parent, or your teacher. And they say, you must go on a quest. Only you can go on the quest. And the hero goes, who, me? I can't go. I don't know how. And the mentor goes, teach you, I will. Train you, I will. Talisman, I will. And the mentor sometimes gives the hero a talisman, which is like an object of special magical, sometimes magical properties, sometimes not, but it reminds the hero that they are called on the quest. Here are some of my favorite mentors. Dorothy, the good witch Glinda tells Dorothy to follow the yellow brick road, and she gives her the ruby slippers. Chiron, the second one there, gives Percy Jackson Riptide, the pen that turns into a sword. And of course, Obi-Wan gives Luke the lightsaber. Gandalf gives Frodo the ring. Notice the mentor is often a man with a beard. And mentor comes from the Odyssey, the other epic story by Homer, along with the Iliad. And here's mentor, the old man with the beard, giving Telemachus, the son of Odysseus, some advice. But it's not really mentor, the old man. It's a goddess in disguise. It's the goddess of wisdom in disguise. Can you remember her name? If you said Athena, pat yourself on the back. Now, the mentor doesn't have to be a man with a beard. Here's Theseus on a plaque about this big from the British Museum. And you can see his mother, Aethra, saying, Theseus, when you're old enough to lift the ginormous stone, you can get your dad's sword and go and seek your fortune. So she's the mentor. The sword is the talisman. Here's Aeneas. Now, you all know the story of the Greeks versus the Trojans. The Greeks lived in Greece, and Paris, a Trojan, stole the most beautiful Greek woman called Helen and took her to Troy, which is in modern Turkey. And the Greeks all got together and sailed in 1,000 ships to get her back. That's why they say she had the face that launched 1,000 ships. And after 10 years of besieging Troy, the Greeks won by a trick. Who knows what that trick was? If you said the horse, you got it right. Now, that's quite a small horse, but look, these buildings are as tall as a cathedral, so that's actually a big horse. And of course, at midnight, the Greeks dropped out of the horse, there they are, and they set Troy on fire. A few people escaped, including Aeneas down here. He had to go through the town gate, cross the threshold, and he's got his old dad on his shoulders and his son Ascanius. And he has to go and make some ships and seek a new Troy. And halfway through Virgil's Aeneid, which is the story of Aeneas's search for a new homeland, he goes to the underworld. And this is something heroes often do, is they go to Hades, the underworld, about halfway through their story. And Hercules goes to the underworld, Theseus goes to the underworld, Orpheus, of course, goes to the underworld, and so does Aeneas. And this is a beat. At the beginning of the journey, your hero has to cross a threshold. One step will take them into a new world, often the underworld. And here's a threshold guardian, the three-headed hound. In a movie, this is often the most visually exciting moment of the film, as when Dorothy steps out of black and white Kansas into Technicolor Munchkinland, or when Mr. Carl Fredricksen literally leaves his world, or lifts off in 1,000 helium balloons, and Wally, who literally leaves his world. In Star Wars, of course, it's when they jump into hyperspeed and leave the galaxy. Now, sometimes this is where a guard will try to stop your hero going and cross that threshold and then make sure they really want to go. The Romans knew about thresholds. They believed that where the town gate, which was often an arch like this, met the graveyard, they thought demons and evil spirits clung to that gate. Can you see the evil spirits there? No, because they're invisible. You might say, stupid Romans believed in invisible evil spirits, but they didn't know about germs and bacteria. All they knew was that sometimes they'd leave their house or go into the graveyard, and when they came back, they got ill. And they thought, ooh, a demon must have jumped on me, or an evil spirit made me sick. And that actually makes sense, because they didn't know about germs and bacteria and viruses like we do. I mean, we wash our hands. We can't see viruses. We believe in them. We just trust that they're there. That's why we wash our hands. And we think that's one reason why they had those welcome mats that say, beware the dog. Not just against burglars, but against evil spirits, because evil spirits and demons do not like dogs or leopards or lions or scary things. That's why you have a scary face where the woods meet the town. The sign against evil, the left hand forward. Snakes. Romans thought snakes were lucky because there are no poisonous snakes in Italy, but demons don't like snakes. So these lucky snakes would scare away the demons. And that's why some Roman ladies like Cleopatra wore snake jewelry. We found a lot in Pompeii that didn't save their owners, sadly, from evil. Here is a famous fresco, a painting on a wall, showing a naked man doing a poo, being protected by two snakes, and the goddess of good luck, with her rudder and her cornucopia, is saying, "Cacator cave malum," O man who is doing a poo, beware of evil. And because they thought demons didn't just live on the doors and the gates, they lived under the toilet. And here's an actual graffiti of a demon from a Pompeian wall, from a toilet. And you can see he's got like a little evil eye in his tummy button, again, to keep away evil.
Yeah, I've got
And he's
one
got
here.
little horns and stuff like that.
Considering what their toilets were like.
I know, it's no wonder. So here are the toilets in Ostia. Now, when tourists go there, they often go, oh, I know what the hole on top is for, but what is the hole at the front for? Now, it's not what you're thinking, boys. The hole at the front is for the sponge on the stick, which is ancient Roman toilet paper. And here's how you would use it. Because the Romans did not have puppy soft Andrex. So if you wanted to wipe your bottom, you'd have to either use a leaf from the fig tree or a pebble or a handful of moss or a sponge on a stick. And you know what? If you didn't have any of those things, you had to use your left hand. And I think that's probably why this is the sign against evil. Stay back, demon. I have poo on my hand. So my husband, Richard, kindly did me a drawing of latrines in Roman Britain. And you can see the guys just sit right there, right next to each other. They don't mind. And you can see they've got the sponges on the stick. And this one here is rinsing it off. These two are just chatting. But this guy is taking the sponge, pushing it through the hole at the front, having a little wipe. He's going to then rinse it in the channel of running water, and leave it in the basin for the next person to use after. But you can see that down below it's wet and slimy and dark, and up above it's quite light and bright. So in a way, it's like two worlds, the light, bright world above, the dark, slimy, smelly world below. So this is a bit like a threshold. Sorry. This is a bit like a threshold. And maybe they thought demons lived down here and would pop their little heads up under there. So that's why you had the goddess Fortuna saying, beware. Now, I love my sponge sticks so much that I actually wrote a whole series of 4 books for your younger brothers and sisters about a little beggar boy who has to actually look for clues under the toilet. And he has 4 books called the Roman Mystery Scrolls. And I say they have less blood and more poo than the Roman Mysteries. So my latest book is called The Time Travel Diaries. And I'm going to read you the first page. And I want you to listen out and see if you can figure out. My hero is Alex, a 12-year-old schoolboy who gets sent back in time because he does Latin club at lunchtime. Yay! So he can speak ancient Latin. And so this mad bazillionaire sends him back to Roman London to find a girl with an ivory knife whose bones we really found in London. So as I read the first page or so, see if you can think, what is Alex's problem? Step number 1. What's his desire? Step number 2. Who's his opponent? And maybe what is he going to learn at the end? Step 6. When I went back in time to look for the blue-eyed girl with the ivory knife, I never thought I would actually find her. The only reason I took the job was for the money. My adventure started on a cold day in January, the Friday before Blue Monday, officially the most depressing day in the year. A pile of dead Christmas trees tried to trip me up as I came out of my stairwell. I had been up late playing a computer game and overslept and missed breakfast. Then at break time, Dinu Balan grabbed my pack of salt and vinegar crisps before I'd had even one. No, I didn't fight him. He's about twice my size. So I was really looking forward to lunch. But a few minutes before the bell rang, the school secretary came into the classroom and gave our teacher a slip of paper. Mrs. Eckhart looked at the paper and then at me. And Alex is about to get his call to adventure, and he's going to have to leave his world and cross a threshold through a fiery portal there into the past. Okay, so who thinks they know? First of all, what is step 2? What is Alex's desire? Have a look at the first line or two. Alex's desire isn't to find the girl with the ivory knife. His desire is for money, because it says the only reason I took the job is for the money. His plan, step 4, is to find the girl with the ivory knife. Now, if you think, if his desire is for more money, what do you think he's going to learn at the end, step 6? He's going to learn that maybe money isn't everything.
As important, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now in about a week, I'm doing this talk on the 19th of May. On the 28th of May, my new book comes out. Oh, by the way, there are rules to time travel. Naked you go and naked you must return. Drink, don't eat, and as little interaction as possible because you don't want to affect the future. I wrote this book as a one-off, and then my publisher said, can you write a sequel? And I thought, what shall I write about? And then I thought, let's go back to ancient Athens. So again, I'm going to read just the first line and see if you can figure out what Alex's problem is, what his desire is, what he needs to learn to live a better life, which is tied in with the knowledge in step 6. When my best friend and I went back in time to track down the wisest man who ever lived, we only did it so we could be rich and famous. Obviously, what he's going to learn is wisdom is more important than fame and riches, though you might disagree. Anybody know who the wisest man who ever lived is?
Socrates?
Yeah, Socrates, there he is. And he was kind of ugly, and he looked like Santa in a tablecloth.
He knows nothing.
He knows nothing. That's what makes him wise, because he's the only one who knows u den oida. I know nothing. Okay, so that's my talk. Oh, and Alex and Dinu, the bully, has become his friend. They have to go back to ancient Athens and find Socrates. There he is, right there. Okay, so that's my talk. Now you can ask me some questions and I will answer your questions.
Okay. I was wondering whether you have a particular, should I call it recipe, or how do you follow the same kind of routine when you write books?
Do you mean my daily routine?
Yeah, your daily, yeah.
Funny you should ask. I actually have an average day in my life, which is from my book, How to Write a Great Story. And this is pretty much what I did before lockdown. And it's pretty much what I still do. So my life has not changed that much. I wake up, I can't help it. I wake up about 5:30. My brain is fizzing with ideas. Then I do like 30 minutes of yoga and prayerful meditation. Then I write, tap, 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 tap. Then I have breakfast, yum. Then I write some more, tap, 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 tap. Then I love salads, so I often have a salad at lunchtime. And then I go for a long walk in the park, because we live by the river, so I can walk by the river or walk in the park. And now these days it's like packed with joggers and cyclists and everybody trying to get out and get their exercise. My secret is at about 4 o'clock, I have a power nap for about 20 minutes. And then I can work for the rest of the day. Pliny the Elder did that too. He used to have a whole day, go to the baths, and then have a nap. And then he'd wake up and do it all over, but in the same day. There's my husband, Richard, who cooks. Yay. We have dinner at about 6 o'clock and watch some good TV. Then I do a little administration. I do like invoices and answer emails and stuff. And then we maybe watch another program or two. Then we go to bed at about 11 or so. And I read in bed with my husband next to me. And we go to bed at about midnight. So that's pretty much a day in my life. Obviously, if you have kids or a bigger family, or you're not a morning person, it will be different for you. But it's great to kind of find a routine. So that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that.
Thank you. I could ask another one if my colleagues haven't got one. Obviously, you studied the classics. So, and your books are kind of based on quite a lot of knowledge that you obviously gathered at university. Do you still need to do research for your books?
Oh yeah, that's the best bit. I've been studying classics for 40 years since university. And the amazing thing about classics, the world of ancient Greece and Rome, is you can never even scratch the surface. Even 40 years on, I'm still discovering things I don't know about them. And they're the myths, they're the plays, there's the history. For me though, what I love most is daily life. How was their daily life, the things they ate, the things they did, the way they slept, the way they bathed, the way they interacted? How was that the same and how was that different? And I just love researching all that. But so for that reason, I still do Greek classes. I still do Latin occasionally, and I still do Hebrew. I do ancient Hebrew as well, because of course in the Middle East, they're speaking Hebrew. These were the 4 languages that they were speaking in the 1st century AD. The main language was, anybody? What was the lingua franca?
Yeah, lingua franca, yeah.
Was Greek, yeah. And then Latin came next. And then, of course, in the Middle East, they're speaking Aramaic in Judea in Israel, but they also knew Hebrew. So Jonathan, my Jewish boy, he speaks Latin, Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic. And so I am learning those languages. I am still learning them because, you know, I'm just a perpetual student. I'm always learning, and every time I find a new fun fact, I'm going to put it into my latest book. So I love doing the research. Great question.
Actually, you can see it in the language, sorry, Joe, because you tend to use similes that are kind of linked to those times, etc., which is beautiful.
Oh, I love to find, like, instead of saying cat got your tongue, if someone's quiet, the ancient Romans say, did an ox tread on your tongue? Yeah. I love that. So I collect all those ancient, like, sayings and things and use those. I love that sort of thing, yeah.
My question was, of your books you've written, have you got a favourite?
Yeah.
And have you also got a favourite book by another children's author?
Yeah, my favorite book that I have written is, excuse me a moment, it's The Pirates of Pompeii. It's my third Roman mystery, and I loved it. It's my favorite because I had the most fun writing this book. It's set in Sorrento on the Bay of Naples, and I fell in love with the setting and with the characters. I have two favorite books. My favorite book for grown-ups is the book that changed my life, The Last of the Wine. My favorite children's book is My Family and Other Animals by Gerald.
I love that one.
Oh, it's so good. And it's like my comfort book. And it's one of the few books that I read and I laugh out loud. But it's just amazing. It's set on the Greek island of Corfu in the 1930s. And I just love that book so much. But I do know some famous authors who are still alive, like children's authors. That's why I don't want to choose one of them in case other ones get lost.
That would have been the most interesting one.
What was, sorry, did I miss a question?
No.
Can I ask one question? Do you have any favourite words or phrases that you use in your books?
Yes, that's a really good question, and I have to admit it, but I've got to go through my books and weed out. I often have little. I overuse the word little, but my favorite word is thing, which for an author is a bad word because thing is anything. So when my husband goes, I go, Richard, can you get the thing from the thing? By the thing. So I'm ashamed to say thing is a bad word for an author because we need to be specific in our words. But my favorite word is maybe apotropaic, which means it comes from a Greek word, apo from tropos, turns, and it's something that turns away evil. And I love the idea.
Like prevention.
Yeah, anything that keeps away evil spirits. Because I think the Romans were really obsessed with this world full of invisible gods, not just the big gods, but all the little demigods and some good spirits and some evil spirits and some demons. And you can't kill a demon, but what you can do is distract it. And one of the ways, it wasn't just visual. You could have like a little tin cowbell that would distract the demon. Goes, what's that? What's that? And also they even like borders on the clothing would distract a demon, and he goes like a maze, like those cable patterns that go in and out. That's to keep the demon from hurting you. And even colors were used against demons. Like I went to Israel a few years ago, and they have blue painted doors because they think blue keeps away demons. But in Italy, they believe red keeps away demons. So it's just utterly fascinating. And so apotropaic is my favorite word. The sign against evil. I've got poo on my hand.
The eye actually is probably used in the whole of the Balkans because it's definitely used in Bulgaria. I believe Turkey as well.
Yeah, and probably, you know, things like spitting and saying things and touching yourself in certain ways are all against evil. Yeah.
Yes.
We do. Well, we spit. We spit down.
And of course, they thought if you have blue eyes, you have extra power.
Yeah.
And you know, like if you look with envy at a baby, you can curse the baby. So that's why little kids often had an amulet to protect them against the evil eye. Yeah.
Or the 40 days after the baby was born.
Ah, what do you do in the 40
not
days?
allowed.
What do
I
you
don't know. Could you hear me? No. Yeah, it's believed that when a baby's born, visitors are not allowed for 40 days, again, to protect it from evil spirits, which must be because the baby obviously needs to develop its immunity.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And you know what's amazing is 40 is the biblical number of testing, because the children of Israel were in the desert for 40 years, and Jesus went to the desert for 40 days, and also the Temple of Jerusalem was destroyed 40 years after he was crucified in 70 AD. So yeah, I love things like, I love that, these patterns you see from the past that still survive today. Yeah,
they do.
So fascinating. You know what?
And last question.
Yeah, last question. Yeah.
Last one. Yeah. How long does it take you to write a book?
That was my question.
Yours. Sorry.
Because of my 7 steps, it only takes me half a year to write a book. So I write about 2 books a year, and that's why I've been able to write over 35 books in the last 20 years. A couple of books didn't get published, so I've actually written about 40 books. A couple are still in my drawer or on my computer. So that formula I gave you is really, really powerful, really useful.
Perfect, thank you.
Oh, and if you have any more questions, you can email me at carolinelawrence@me.com, and I love to hear from anybody who wants to email me. Some famous authors get tons of emails, but I get like a few a week, so I really would love to hear.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you guys. And if you liked my talk, buy one of my books. Yay!
Well,
definitely. We'll be buying some for the library when we go back to being in real time.
And great, and also you can get them on Kindle. Like this one is under £4. You can be reading it as soon as it comes out next week. You can
I have pre-ordered it.
Yeah, fantastic. Yay, thank you.
Thank you so much for talking to us today.
Okay.
I know the children are going to be fascinated, and hopefully we'll see all your steps appearing in our writing at school.
Yay.
And also, if you've got questions, if they don't email you, they can also put them on the blogs, on our Purple Mesh blogs, and we'll get them to you. So if they've got other questions they'd like to share.
Okay.
So
the talk has been inspiring.
Very.
Okay. No, I've never used this.
Thanks for sharing that,
Just in case anyone wants to ask that.
Okay. Thank you. And bye.
Brilliant. Bye-bye. Bye. Thank you.